On today's show, two teams were punished by the NBA for deliberately tanking. The Washington Wizards were not one of them. They are safe for now.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, free and available every single day. We are the #1 sports podcast network in the nation. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Alongside the DC sports content creating savant Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober, and I cover the Washington Wizards for Roundtable.io. AB, happy Friday. Rising Stars game tonight. How's it going?
I'm good, Ben. I hope you're feeling better. It was funny. I don't know if you saw, someone commented on yesterday's video, Ben being sick was part of the tanking process for the Wizards.
That's crazy. I think it was Locked On Law that said I had Wizards fever. And yeah, I really did have a fever. So I guess it was the tanking fever, the Wizards fever, the Rising Stars game that's tonight fever. A lot to get to in this episode. The Wizards were not punished by the NBA amongst two teams that were for deliberately tanking. We'll get into that. And then we'll go through a mailbag for the final two segments. Got a lot of questions to answer for you guys today. Let's get right into it. The NBA fined the Utah Jazz $500,000 and the Pacers $100,000 for conduct detrimental to the league, and this is regarding tanking. So the NBA announced this yesterday. The Jazz were fined because of their games against the Magic on February 7th, the Heat on February 9th. During those games, the Jazz removed two of the team's top players, Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. Before the beginning of the fourth quarter, they did not return to the game. Will Hardy obviously was not regretful of that decision based on what he said in the post-game press conference. AB, are you surprised that this has happened?
No, honestly, I'm not. Like you mentioned, Will Hardy willingly just made it obvious that they were tanking. It didn't seem like they were trying to hide it. And now Jaren Jackson Jr. is out for the year. It kind of does show that what the Wizards are doing, you can't really get mad at them that much because those are valid injuries that they're going through right now compared to the Jazz and Pacers where they're deliberately trying to tank. But how much of a joke would it be, Ben, if both these teams get fined that amount of money and they still get a top 2, top 3 pick? It's like it doesn't matter at the end of the day, and it just really makes you wonder, this draft lottery coming up and the amount of talent in this draft. A lot of headlines are going to go into it, and I know Adam Silver talked about how there's a possibility where they'll change the format of trying to get a high draft pick. I don't know what it will be, but again, this fine thing, it is what it is. I kind of expected it because everyone was talking about it, and I just wonder if anything changes when it comes to how the Jazz will run lineups throughout the rest of the season.
I don't really understand it because, like, by this thinking, this is chump change for these teams. $500,000, okay, $100,000 for Indiana. That's nothing. I think the teams will happily eat these fines to go through with what they feel like they need to do. The Jazz have a top 8 protected pick. The Pacers have a top 4 protected pick. So, like, this is super serious stuff for them. And they're pretty committed to this bit of losing because they feel it is vital for the next step of their franchise, and they'll happily eat those fines. So I don't really get it. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. This is the NBA just basically saying we're going to do something about it. So this is them taking action against it. I don't think it really does anything, but I think it's just them trying to send a message like, hey, like, we're doing something about it. We noticed that this is an issue, and, like, we might do more in the future. And this probably isn't the end of the fines, if I had to guess. Like, the Wizards are safe for now, and that's what we'll talk about a lot throughout this episode, but I don't think it necessarily means they're safe for the rest of the year here. They might get dinged for something eventually, and I don't think the Wizards will care if they do.
Yeah, I was going to say that top 8 protected pick for Utah, if it falls out, it goes to OKC, right?
Yeah.
So do you think officials went up to, or Sam Presti himself went up to Adam Silver and said, hey, like, look at Utah, look what they're doing. Like, that's not fair?
I think I saw a report that there might have been some indication that did happen, or somebody from OKC might have put in a word in that situation. Like, is something like that going to happen with New York?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, people are probably telling James Dolan, like, yo, look at the nation's capital. That's our draft pick. Look what they're doing. I don't know. And again, it's a slap on the wrist, Ben. Obviously, to us, $100,000 and $500,000 is a lot of money. But to these NBA teams that are now the Wizards worth $5 billion, and Utah Jazz and Indiana Pacers are making so much money, so it doesn't really get anywhere. And I like how you said it's just something that goes to show that the NBA, or Adam Silver rather, is trying to enforce something. But at the end of the day, it's meaningless.
And the reasoning they gave, they said overt behavior like this, prioritizing draft position over winning, undermines the foundation of NBA competition, and we will respond accordingly to any further actions that compromise the integrity of our games. Well, the Wizards and Pacers play twice next week, so I wonder if this notion's gonna dramatically affect the way those two games go, because those games are circled on everyone's calendars right now for the wrong reason. It's going to be really interesting to see how the lineups shake up for both of those teams on that day. But I wonder if this actually like benefits the Wizards, because all right, everyone is like trashing the Wizards. We saw Tony Kornheiser yesterday. You and Greg did a great video talking about that, saying, well, they trade for two players that aren't even going to play for them. Well, first of all, we might see Trae Young and Anthony Davis play this season. Those guys are legitimately hurt. They had injuries before they were traded. They're not making up phantom injuries for the. Are they taking their time with the recovery process? Yeah, probably. I think there's some evidence. I think you can infer that based on what we know about the injuries. But these are not made up type of injuries. The Jazz were being punished because Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. were taken out of the game and not put back in, and the coach was very unapologetic within the means of doing that. And it's just weird to me, like that the NBA would actually fine anybody, because I understand like this is a huge issue, but who's the NBA to say how the coach runs their team? Like, what if they were just playing another lineup? Because the Wizards did the same exact thing against the Kings. They played an all-bench lineup for the final 16 minutes against the Kings, but maybe because the Kings are also a tanking team, they didn't really care how this deliberately would affect the standings, and the Jazz did this against the Heat, who are, contending to be a playoff team right now. Is that what the issue is right now that the NBA has? Is that why the integrity has been ruined in this sense? I don't really understand it, AB.
Yeah, it's funny. Shout out to our listener, Jesse. He showed a meme to me where it was from the iconic movie We're the Millers. And it's like everyone talking about how much money they're getting paid. And I think the boy, I forgot the actor's name, but he was like, you guys are getting paid. And it's similar to what tanking teams are, where it's like, look what they're doing. No, look what they're doing. And then the Kings are just really bad. There's no justification for them losing. But yeah, going back to what you were saying, I don't know where can we go from here, Ben? I really think there isn't a valid solution that satisfies all parties, and it's just the way it is. And I think a lot of it, Ben, I'll say it one more time, is due to the fact that this draft class coming up is loaded. I don't think we'd be having this discussion, Ben, if we were back in 2024 and we saw Zachary, we saw Shea, Reed Shepard, Alex Sarr. Don't get me wrong, I love Alex, but again, it's just the timing of this situation and in the future. It's funny, Ben, like growing up, I said this in the Locked On NBA game night yesterday. We're taught in any sport realm to go out there and win. But when you look at it, me trying to explain to my little brother, we should lose because we want to get. It's like, how do you explain that? And you kind of try to hide that product of you going out there and losing. So it's a tough balance, and I don't know. And I know Adam Silver's going to get pressed about it during this All-Star game press conference. I don't know what he's going to say, Ben.
Yeah, we're going to have to follow that along really closely in this situation, because you're right. Like, no player goes out there with the intent of losing. That's the thing in this situation. They're punishing the teams. I mean, think about how it must feel for the Jazz players. If you're on the Jazz right now who just got fined $500,000, if you're one of the bench players for that team that played in that final quarter, you go, damn, our organization got fined $500K because the coach chose to play me in the final quarter of this game. Like, that's kind of degrading in a way, for being honest. And I love the tweet that you made about, so the NBA was considering having some stupid tournament or something to have just determine the lottery teams. Like, all the lottery teams would compete, and the winner of that would get the first pick. And you're like, bro, if I'm a player, like, I'm not playing so a team can draft somebody better than me to take my spot.
Why is no one thinking about that, Ben? If I'm Bilal Coulibaly, obviously I don't want them to take AJ DeBonza or Kill. Like, I want to play for my spot, and it's dumb. Like, Darren Peterson, okay, like, I'm not gonna play for him to take my spot. It's just, what's the reasoning behind that?
I don't know. This is a mess, though, and I don't know where the NBA goes from here. And the Wizards are safe for now from these fines. I don't think it really matters. The Wizards might end up getting fined at some point in this season, but I really don't think they're going to care either way because the Wizards, they still have a top 8 protected pick. They're in a good spot right now. We're second, I believe, right now after the other day, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes, we are second with a 14-39 record here in the All-Star break and those tankathon standings. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. The Wizards, I think, have 6 more games against the deliberately tanking teams. You got Indiana 2 more times. You have Brooklyn 1 more time. You have New Orleans 1 more time, and then Utah twice.
Ben,
So,
Dallas is creeping in, bro. They've lost 9 in a row.
Dallas is creeping in, but we don't play them anymore, so we're not as worried about playing them head-to-head. We played them twice in the first 4 weeks of the season, or more like the first 3 weeks, which I thought was kind of crazy. So haven't seen them in quite some time. And obviously the Wizards contributed to some of the Mavericks losing this year, beating them in the second game of the season. So it's funny that it works out like that. I don't know, AB, I just can't wait to be done with all of this, and maybe because the Wizards have gone out and traded for 2 all-star caliber players in Trae Young and Anthony Davis, maybe this means they'll be in the NBA's good graces because it signals to them that they won't be doing this after this season, but they still might get dinged with something before the end of this year.
Yeah, it seems like a fine, which, again, it is what it is. It's going to be a slap on the wrist. But I generally wonder if Adam Silver will change anything. I know people brought up the fact that you just want to follow the NFL format, but again, that's not going to help. The draft is really vital when it comes to the order. In the NFL, you can get a stud late in the second round, late in the third round, late in the first round, Ben. So it's kind of hard to compare the two, comparing apples and oranges. But again, I don't know where we can go from here because I've seen so many suggestions and none of them seem valid, Ben.
You can't compare the way the NFL does its draft to the NBA because there's 5 players on the floor at one time, 15 players on the team as opposed to 11 players on each side of the ball in football, 53 on a roster. One player can be that much of a difference in how well your team. And I guess if you're tanking for a quarterback, the NFL doesn't care about that because there's usually like a couple teams that are tanking for a quarterback every single season. The NFL really doesn't care about it because it's not an issue to them. But in the NBA, it's not an avoidable thing in my opinion. And I've heard people say that they should abolish the draft completely, but I don't understand where you go from there. How do players get selected to different teams if you don't have a draft process? How does that make any sense? So I don't know. It's really, really weird to think about, but we'll see if anything happens going forward with that. All right, when we come back, we get into our Locked On Wizards mailbag, answering your questions next. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for the events you get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening faceoff. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience from engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Hiring isn't just about finding someone who's willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listings to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who actually fit. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, time to get into the Locked On Wizards mailbag. We got a ton of questions to get through, so we'll go through the final 15 or so minutes of the show answering these questions. Let's see what we can kick it off here with.
Ben, I was going to say a salute before we start to Chris Paul. He actually just retired.
So, yeah. I did
former Wizard.
Wizards legend Chris Paul retired today. 21 seasons in the league. What was he, 11-time All-Pro?
Yeah.
Something like that?
It's sad the way he went out, but it is what it is.
Man, never got that ring. It's unfortunate. Hate to see it. Here's the first one that I got up on here from Leon, a big-time listener of the channel. Do you think Will Riley ultimately makes Keyshawn George redundant in the main piece for the final veteran whale trade that apparently Anthony Davis is insisting upon? So I think he's referring to the Wizards making like an all-in type of move, which is something I do think is possible at some point. Is it going to be for a player like Keyshawn George? I don't think Keyshawn George will ever become a redundant player, regardless of how Will Riley develops offensively. I think what George has provided defensively through the first 2 years of his career is too valuable for what they need on the wing, because we saw it the other night when they gave up 16 threes to Cleveland. They're going to need guys that can lock in and play great on-ball defense, that can close out hard and play well on the perimeter. And I think George and Riley are similar offensive style players, and maybe Riley does have a higher offensive ceiling than a guy like George. But I think it's way too early to make a determination like that. So I don't think George would ever become a redundant player in this Wizard system. AB, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's probably someone else on this roster. I'm not going to say who. You guys can try to figure that out. But Keyshawn George, what he offers you, versatility-wise, defending 1 through 4, three-point shooting, the mid-range shot is off one bump. Love it. I think it's too soon to project Will Riley's career in the NBA because we want to see him fill out. But I think it just wouldn't make sense to trade Keyshawn. I think he is definitely, I don't want to say, honestly, I'd say untouchable, man, because I see the ceiling, and it's really, really good. He's a rising star at 22 years old, and it's going to be exciting when this team is actually playing winning basketball. People will start to acknowledge that this is a really good piece of this young core surrounded by Anthony Davis and Trae Young. And it's a good question, though. Shout out to Leon. But I just don't see, even though I love Will Riley, I don't see Will Riley making Keyshawn George redundant.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, next one we got here from Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat. Which young Wizard benefits the most from playing alongside Young and Anthony Davis next season? And I think the obvious answer that you and I have talked a lot about on this pod is Alex Sarr. You just look at what Sarr has done in year number 2 of his career after a rookie season that was kind of defined as lackluster for Alex Sarr. There were some flashes, but a lot of play where you just kind of scratch your head and say, I wonder what we're going to see in the next couple of years from this guy, because you see the flashes of potential, but he looks like he's got a lot to iron out. He's ironed out a lot of it, and he's done that without a legitimate point guard on the roster, and he's done that without another legitimate big man to play alongside of him and take some of the weight off his shoulders. The ability that he's had defensively to protect the rim and then provide the switch ability that they like on that end as well, to get out on the perimeter and go guard some of the team's faster guard players or guys on the wing, has been admirable. And then if you add Anthony Davis to the mix, it's going to help him out defensively. Not going to have as much cut out for him if he's going to have to match up with a guy like Giannis or a guy like Cat every single night. And then just to have Trae Young be the main distributor for you, to see them work out of the pick and roll, because the Wizards are pretty much like a primary pick and roll offense, and Trae Young has been a primarily dominant, one of the best in this era pick and roll players. I think that's going to be a match made in heaven. So Sarr's the easy answer, but I think everybody can really benefit. George with the catch and shoot opportunities on the wing. Trey Johnson playing off ball a little bit more, having some set plays run for him could look really good. But the answer easily for me is Sarr.
100%. And you took the offensive perspective. Defensively, Alex Sarr and Anthony Davis, Ben, that front court, it's going to be hard to get some shots up in the paint. And dominating in the paint is going to be amazing, because right now you already have these wings and below and Keyshawn who are only going to get better. And with Trae, it's okay, people are going to go past him, but that opens up the opportunity for Alex Sarr to get some swats, and AD hopefully when healthy. So it's going to be exciting, because not only do you have a playmaker for Sarr, Trae, it's just going to open up a whole different type of ball game for these young guys, because it's not like they don't have a floor general. And I'm excited. Trae Young, 2024, led in assists per game, and he's surrounded by a core that he ultimately didn't really have, at least talent-wise and ceiling-wise, compared to when he was with Atlanta. So it's going to be fun times in the district next year, Ben.
Yes, sir. All right, let's get one more in here before the break. How much does our draft selection affect the long-term futures of Bub and Bilal? So this is interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because these are two players right now, I think, legitimately, if you think about where they are in terms of the roster, who they've added at the trade deadline with Trae Young and Anthony Davis and some of the prospects coming up in this draft, it's pretty likely to say that Bub, at least in potentially Bilal, I'm a little bit more unsure with him, will be guys that probably come off the bench for this Wizards team next season. And like no disrespect to them, and like they still deserve a lot of credit for the players they are, but I think in the context of what's going to be on the roster next year, like it'll probably make the most sense. I really like Bilal because of what he brings to the table defensively, and I continue to say like that's a vital piece of a championship team is a guy that can defend the perimeter the way Bilal does. In terms of Bub, like most of the time when they've had like their full strength lineup, even throughout this year, Bub has been a guy that's come off the bench and played well at times as a guy that can be the combo guard and shoot the three ball really effectively. And I think because he shot the three ball really well, that's going to ultimately help him stick around a lot longer than I think people will give him credit for. Like I think that ability he has shooting at around 45% from three this year is legitimately important for a team like that. And just because he's not the long-term future guard answer that some people hoped he might be at some point, I don't think it's a situation where you see him like on the trade block or not making the team or something at some point. I think those guys would have safe futures with the team, but more likely than not just as bench players. But it is interesting because we don't know who we're getting in the draft at this point. If you go out and get AJ DeBonsta, then where does that leave you? Do you have Keyshawn coming off the bench and then Bilal as well? If you get Darren Peterson, is Trae Johnson coming off the bench, or is he going to play the three? Like, it's really, there's no way to answer this question legitimately until you find out who they actually draft.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think this draft class coming up is so loaded. You take best player available, and it's going to impact the way you run your lineups. And if it's a wing, Wilson, Boozer, Peterson, or guard Peterson, that's going to reduce minutes for some of these guys like Bub Carrington. And that's fine. Bub Carrington giving you that three-point shot is very, very nice. The combo guard role, still 20 years old, so a lot of room to grow. Bilal is the guy where I'm looking at offensively, if we still haven't seen any spurts of growth, then I'm saying, hey, take a step to the side, and we love your defensive capability, but AJ, what he's doing right now offensively can provide us with more, because that's what it is in today's NBA, Ben. You need to go out there and be able to score at least 10 to 12 points, be efficient. And it really makes you wonder what the plan is hypothetically if they are not lucky, if we're not lucky again and we fall out of the top five. What's the move? It's just so many things are all predicated on the fact that the lottery has to go in our favor.
Yeah, that's going to be like a make or break type of thing for this organization, I think, what happens in the lottery. All right, when we come back, we continue to answer your questions here in the Locked On Wizards mailbag. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. If you pull up the Game Time app, you'll love seeing all the prices up front for you. There's no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to see the view from the seat before makes the decision that much easier. Zone deals stood out. You choose the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save. Great last-minute options, too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Continuing to run through our Locked On Wizards mailbag here ahead of the All-Star break, or now we are in the All-Star break. The Rising Stars game is tonight at 9 p.m. Keyshawn, Trae, and Bub. Sar out with the hamstring injury. He'll be out for at least 2 weeks with said hamstring injury, so you won't see him in those games against the Pacers, AB. That'll be interesting to see. Here's a good one, because there's been a lot of discourse around this. Are we worried about Darren Peterson missing games / his attitude? AB, I'll let you answer this first.
Man, it's tough because I know Darren Peterson is a dog, and the one thing that I'm always hanging my hat on is that Kyrie didn't play a lot of games. I think he only played 11 games at Duke and was a Hall of Famer. So with DP, it does make you scratch your head if you're a Wizards fan because you want to get a guy that can go out there and play, but we just don't know the situation at hand. Maybe it's an injury that he just doesn't want to linger. We'll see March Madness. I know Caleb Wilson, but I don't know if you saw, he just got ruled out with an injury, I think 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he's going to miss the majority of March Madness, right?
It looks like he'd miss at least the beginning.
Yeah. So injuries are a real thing, and think about it. You're these guys. You're about to be a top 3, top 4 pick. You want to make sure you're at the highest odds of getting pick number 1, and that's the most amount of money guaranteed you'll make. So if you're Darren Peterson, you want to make sure that your health is your wealth.
I'm not really worried about it personally. I think he's too good when he's on the floor to be overly concerned about it right now, but it is something to note. And I think Darren Peterson to the Wizards is making so much sense right now. Do you want to know why, AB? Because at this point, the Wizards have always been a franchise that fans and people around the league just make fun of all the time, right? Like, take them as a joke because
you don't say, Ben.
because they were a joke for a lot of years. But fans around basketball love to make fun of the Wizards. And I don't think I've ever seen a draft prospect that's been this made fun of like Darren Peterson. So if the Wizards got the first pick and took Darren Peterson, I guarantee we'd get clowned for it, saying that he's a bust and that he won't play and that he'll get hurt all the time. But if the Mavericks landed number 1 overall and took Darren Peterson, they'd be like, no way.
Great pick. Amazing.
Like,
Steal.
The Mavericks got lucky again. They really got this demon, Darren Peterson. But if the Wizards get him, everybody's going to say it's a terrible pick. And that's why I think it actually makes a lot of sense right now. We'll get him, and then we'll be clowned for it.
DP and DC, I like that. That fits well. And
then they're
again,
going to call him DNP. You know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. What was it, Ben? The Magic Sora AI, that video that you sent me? It's the memes. I know it's going to come, and I can't wait till Darren Peterson balls on the NBA. It's going to be exciting.
I know, man. All right, who of the Wizards' young players deserves a second contract? Well, the only one that'll be eligible for it this upcoming October is Bilal Coulibaly. He probably gets signed to a cheap extension, if I had to predict now.
What's the number, Ben?
What was Denny's contract? Like $11 million per year?
Yep.
Yeah, like he probably gets something similar to that, if we're being honest. Maybe less than that. It depends on how much they value what they want from him defensively. I don't think he's in a position where he could command a ton of money from the organization, but that's just how I feel about it. The year after that, your guys Keyshawn and Sarr and Bub become eligible for extensions. So Sarr obviously makes sense. Like you could see him probably get the max rookie extension at that point. Maybe George get another big extension as well. It's going to be interesting. They'll have decisions to make on a lot of this stuff as well because the Wizards will have big contracts out next year for Trae Young on the 1-year player option unless they choose to extend him, which is something that could happen this summer. Anthony Davis will be playing for $58 million next year, and then a player option the next year I think is $62 million. So the Wizards will kind of have to manage the cap however they feel is necessary, but this organization has done a good job of making sure they've been pretty flexible in terms of their financial situation. So I'm not too worried about them getting into a situation where they get in cap hell. That's why I don't really think I'm worried that much about an Anthony Davis extension right now.
Yeah, I'm not worried either. I mean, the front office that got out of Bradley Beal's super max contract, no trade clause, the fact that they got out of that and where they are now, it just gives me affirmation that this front office knows what they're doing. So I don't think they're going to be in any worries of financial flexibility because of the work and the moves that they've done so far in Will Dawkins' tenure.
All right, let's get the last one in here. Will the Wizards have issues with physicality long term? The answer to this question for me is probably. They are the lightest team in the NBA right now, and primarily that's because they're the 4th youngest team since the trades, I guess, but they were the youngest team in the league at one point. They still, this is the kind of frame of player that they've seemed to have liked to draft, or players that are a little bit on the thin side because they like the athletic ability, the positional flexibility that they get at a lot of these players, or positional size, I should say, with a guy like Will Riley, Keyshawn George, Bilal. They all fit kind of like a similar build. And although you get Anthony Davis, Trae Young doesn't do much for you in terms of your physicality because he's going to be the smallest player on the floor for the Wizards out there. So, I could see that legitimately being an issue going forward at some point. And, we've seen how they've fared against teams that are a lot bigger and more physical than them. They've had a hard time on a couple of occasions this season. So, it's going to be interesting to see, how much good weight can a lot of these players put on, and will they make any moves to kind of bolster the physicality? Because I think as it stands right now, I would lean toward it probably being somewhat of an issue long term, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, again, I think right now after acquiring AD and Trae Young, this team is the fourth youngest team in the NBA. So there's going to be times where we're going to get out muscled out there. And this past off season, we saw the growth in height and weight with Keyshawn, Alex, Bub, a lot of these guys. So we just got to hit the weight room more. I think we'll be just fine. I think next season, rebounding wise, if AD's out there, the part of the plan is to have him pair alongside Alex. I think we'll be fine in the paint and shouldn't be getting killed on the boards theoretically, but we'll see how it all pans out. It's definitely a worry, something to be worried about. But again, that just comes with having a squad that's very, very young. It happens.
All right, we got the Rising Stars game tonight on Peacock at 9 p.m. We'll see Bub, Keyshawn, and Trae Johnson out there. AB, you got any predictions for what we'll see from our guys tonight?
Honestly, I just want to see good hoops. I want to see Trae take as many shots as he can. Alex Sard, just don't get hurt. I'm not sorry, not Alex Sard. Keyshawn, Alex is out already.
Alex is already hurt.
Sorry. Keyshawn, just making sure no one gets hurt. That's the main thing, because I think nowadays with the Rising Stars, All Stars, it's like no one really tries because they're kind of worried about their ego or getting hurt, which, okay, it is what it is. But, yeah, just go out there and just get some buckets, man.
Yeah. Hopefully we see something that we can get a clip from, something that we can smile about, because it's an achievement, realistically. You have 3 Rising Stars out there for back-to-back years. You're the only team other than Memphis to have 3 out there, so I think it's something the Wizards could use as a stick of success right now. Say, like, hey, like, we got 3 guys that are in this Rising Stars game because we want to say that we have a bright future. So I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm looking forward to it, AB.
What did you think of Nick Wright's suggestion of fixing the All-Star game?
What was his suggestion?
It was, and I think he was joking because he was laughing, but it was like you get all the white guys and black guys and play against each other.
That's so funny. That's really funny.
Oh, you actually didn't hear about that?
I saw. I didn't realize that was Nick Wright. Actually, I did see the clip of it, but I forgot. That was a couple days ago, right?
Yeah.
The All-Star game is cooked. Even that idea is hilarious. It still wouldn't fix it. The All-Star game is cooked.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't want to compare it to the Pro Bowl because the Pro Bowl is a legit joke, but
the Pro Bowl is worse.
The All-Star game used to mean something, man. Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon, dunk-offs, Draymond Green and Kevin Hart, 3-point competitions. Like, that was fun. But last year, Wemby and Chris Paul tanking a skills competition game. Are you freaking kidding me?
Wait, so now, like, it's funny because I saw the meme. You know how, like, Adam Silver or somebody from the NBA was suggesting, like, they'll do a tournament for, like, the tanking teams or whatever to get the first pick. And it was, like, Adam Silver anytime, like, there's an issue in the NBA. And it's, like, him, like, taking, like, a plexiglass thing with water leaking out. It's, like, tournament. In-season tournament. Now tanking team tournament.
No, the next suggestion is we'll have the teams play for a championship. We already do that, man. Like, I really think there's nothing we could do that could change anything and really mean anything long term. But we'll see what he says when people press him, and I hope people ask him good questions, Ben.
I hope so. It'll be interesting. We'll have to keep it locked in on that. All right, that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Wizards. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. For your second, we send you the first ever 24/7 NBA stream here on YouTube on audio. Be sure to check out Locked On NBA Fantasy Basketball. For my co-host, Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober. Talk to you later, DC family.